Back in 1987 or 1988, I was in Glasnevin in a shop unit, having started my first business with my brother in December of 1986. We had a convenience store there in Hart's Corner, Glasnevin. I've made videos about this before, I've spoken about it before, about starting off in small business. I was only 23, the brother was about 26. But it worked out well, it went well. We made a few bob, even though we were starting in the very, very worst of times. The recession in the mid to late 80s was absolutely appalling, indeed the early 80s. But that's not the purpose of this video. In this video I want to tell you about crossing the city and meeting Michael OLeary, who later became the Michael OLeary that we all know and associate with Ryanair. A friend of mine in UCD, I won't name him because I'll save him the embarrassment. He came back from being abroad and he called to me one Saturday morning, or not one Saturday morning, he called to me at some stage in 87 or 88. And he said there was a lad from Mullingar over in Walkinstown in the same line of business as me. In other words, he was in a convenience store. And he suggested that I go across and have a chat with him. So one Saturday morning in 1987 or 88, not sure which year, but I know it wasn't 89 because I think I was gone in 89, I was moved on. So it was 87 or 88, I got into my car and travelled across the city to speak to this fella from Mullingar. And it turned out that we had quite a bit in common. Firstly, I did a BCom, a Bachelor of Commerce degree in UCD, and this fella did a Bachelor of Business Studies in Trinity. So we both studied business. We had both decided that we didn't want to do accountancy or become trainee or apprentice accountants or whatever, and we were obviously making the best of our way as small business persons or entrepreneurs, or call it what you like, hustlers and strokers, quite frankly. So we got to chatting anyway outside at the Walkinstown roundabout. He had a shop unit there. In fact, I think he had two shop units because I think he bought one next door to the other when it came up for sale or whatever, in an opportunistic sort of a fashion. But this was OLeary, and I had gone to school in Mullingar in St. Finian's College. OLeary was from Mullingar and had gone to school in Clongowes, and Clongowes is in Kildare where I live. So we had this sort of, and we both, as I say, did commerce or business studies at third level in university, and we both decided that we didn't want to become accountants. Basically, we didn't want to be scorekeepers, we wanted to be players, and that was our attitude. So that morning I spoke to OLeary, discovered he had a leasehold unit, and he was complaining about the difficulty of running a small business, and complaining about staff, and complaining about customers ripping him off and robbing stuff in the shop, which are all things that go with the territory, quite frankly. But that Saturday morning I drove back across the city from Walkinstown to Glasnevin, and I was really chuffed with myself because I had a freehold unit and it was going well. He had leasehold and he had to pay rent. I was much happier, it appeared to me anyway, than he was in the particular industry, in the particular business that we were in. But shortly afterwards, or some years afterwards rather, I discovered that OLeary had packed in and done the very thing that we both agreed we wouldn't do. He went back in to become an accountant at one of the top accountancy firms. It could have been Coopers and Lybrand, it could have been Craig Gardner, I can't remember which, but it was a top firm. OLeary then became personal assistant to Tony Ryan, and Tony Ryan was the founder of Ryanair. One of the first jobs Ryan asked OLeary to do was to go to Dublin Airport and carry out a review of Ryanair. OLeary went out and he carried out the review and recommended to Tony Ryan to close it up. It would put him and his family on the road. But Tony Ryan didn't accept the advice, didn't act on it. Not too long afterwards, the Seamus Brennan, the Minister for Transport in the Fianna Fáil government, in an effort to ensure and encourage the competition in the marketplace in terms of in the airline industry, and in order probably to keep the unions in Aer Lingus in check, they were anxious, Fianna Fáil were, and the government was, to keep Ryanair on the go, because obviously competition Without competition, any market is going to be in difficulty, and it's obviously from a strategic point of view a good idea to have a healthy airline industry in Ireland, given that we're a small open economy and we're basically an island. So Seamus Brennan took one of the landing slots I think that Aer Lingus had at the time in either Gatwick or Stansted and gave it to Ryanair, just to ensure that Ryanair kept going. Ryanair did keep going, but Tony Ryan then sent OLeary out to a guy called Herb Kelleher in Southwest Airlines in Texas to copy or ape the strategy employed by Southwest Airlines. He did that, and he did it very successfully, and he brought that strategy back from Southwest Airlines, Herb Kelleher, to Ireland. I think Herb Kelleher was his name anyway. I think he had Irish antecedents. Came back to Ireland, implemented it in Ryanair, and the rest is history. Ryanair has been a remarkable success. But it always struck me and crossed my mind that had OLeary been successful in the convenience store game, had he been successful as a small shopkeeper, then it struck me that maybe today he'd be the owner of 3 or 4 or 5 SuperValues or Centras or Spars in the greater Dublin area, or indeed in Leinster or wherever. Whereas the irony was that the very thing that we both decided we wouldn't do, OLeary ended up doing, and ran with the ball that he was given. Tony Ryan ignored him, but as I say, the rest is history. Ryan had the vision and OLeary implemented the plan, but the plan was Southwest Airlines, Herb Kelleher's plan for the low-cost flying or flights, airline ticket model. So, as I say, it's always struck me that maybe if he had been more successful in doing what he was doing, that he'd be running 3 or 4 or have 3 or 4 SuperValues maybe in Dublin at the moment. But I'm sure he's much happier doing what he's doing. I'm sure he's certainly wealthier anyway, that's for sure. I mean, he's probably a billionaire, and more luck to him. He did remarkably well. He implemented the strategy. He took advice or took direction from Tony Ryan. He took the breaks that occurred and cropped up, and he dealt the cards that he was given very well. But it just goes to show you that success sometimes can come down to many factors, and it's not entirely predictable. Sometimes it can be luck, sometimes it can be serendipity, sometimes it can be a good break, a good opportunity, sometimes it can be genius, sometimes it can be just sheer hard graft. I don't think there's any hard and fast formula, but I do think you need a certain element of all of those factors, and I do believe that you need the right attitude though, and the right work ethic in order to implement whatever it is you're going to implement. Anyway, I hope you find this video interesting and perhaps even thought-provoking insofar as maybe it will give you some food for thought in maybe starting your own business, or if you're struggling with your own business, what can happen if you take a different direction? What can happen if you fold the tent and maybe another opportunity might arise, and maybe that'll turn out even better if you can implement some successful strategy. But it just goes to show you success is an elusive sort of a lady, and sometimes you just got to dance with the girl that you bring, and you got to make the best of your opportunities. As I say, I hope you find the video useful. I hope you find it thought-provoking, and perhaps you might learn something from it. As I say, I'm still scratching my head because I can remember well driving back across the city from Walkinstown to Glasnevin, congratulating myself about how well I was doing vis-a-vis OLeary, and yet he's ended up far wealthier than me. But whether he's happier than me or not, I don't know, and I didn't sell out.